A few years ago, I needed a break from my life as a software developer. It was chaotic, and I thought camping would help me reconnect with nature, like I used to as a kid. I drove to a forested area I remembered fondly, hoping to find peace by a tranquil lake surrounded by tall pines. The first day was perfect. I set up my tent, gathered firewood, and just relaxed by the water. I felt good, remembering simpler times. As night came, I sat by the fire, listening to the crackling wood. But then, I heard something strange. There was rustling in the bushes nearby, followed by what sounded like faint laughter. I stood up, heart racing, and looked around. I expected to see animals, but there was only silence, which made me feel uneasy. The next morning, I decided to explore. I hiked along a path and found something odd. Children's footprints led deeper into the woods. I hadn't seen any kids around the campsite. The footprints looked fresh, and a chill ran through me. I hurried back, trying to shake off my unease. That evening, I returned to my camp. As I approached my tent, I saw something at the entrance. It was a small, crudely carved wooden figure. It looked like a little doll, with no clear face, just rough edges. I felt uneasy picking it up, like it had some hidden meaning. My instincts warned me. I looked around, expecting someone to be watching, but I was alone in the stillness of the forest. That night, I couldn't sleep. The echoes of laughter played in my mind, mixing with the rustling leaves outside. I thought I heard footsteps near my tent. Each time I peered out, I saw only darkness. The forest felt alive, almost like it was watching me. I was scared, but I couldn't leave. In the morning, I packed my things, feeling the weight of dread. I rushed to my car and drove home, my mind swirling with questions. Who left that figure? Did I really hear laughter? Or was it just my imagination? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, waiting. Days passed, but I still thought about it. I couldn't forget that forest. Had I shared it with something? Or did my mind just create a story that would follow me? The quiet lake, the tall trees, the strange doll, none of it felt right. I told myself it was just a trip, a chance to escape. Yet every time I closed my eyes, I felt the forest was still holding me somehow. Maybe next time I would camp closer to people. Maybe next time, I wouldn't be so alone. But something deep inside whispered that I wasn't meant to escape that night. And I still wonder, what was really out there? The days turned into weeks, and I found myself haunted by memories of that camping trip. I tried to push it aside, but the thoughts crept in when I was alone. I decided to visit a local bookstore that specialized in outdoor adventures. Maybe reading about the peace of nature would help me forget the lingering fear. As I browsed the shelves, I overheard a conversation between two women discussing a camping site. Their voices were low, but I caught snippets, phrases that made my skin prickle. The old cabin by the lake, and strange things at night. Intrigued, I edged closer, trying to gather more information. People have seen things out there, one woman said, shivers of excitement in her voice. Footprints that don't belong to any animal, and weird sounds echoing through the trees. I swallowed hard. I needed to know more. I confronted them, nervously asking about their experiences. They exchanged glances before the other woman leaned in. Did you hear about the doll? She whispered. My heart dropped. I nodded, my unease returning. It said that kids used to play there. But they never came back, the first woman said, her eyes wide. Now strange things happen around the cabin. Some say it's cursed. Before I could ask for more details, the store owner approached, telling me to keep it down. The women drifted away, leaving me shaken. I couldn't shake the feeling that my trip was connected to theirs. That night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. I wondered if I should go back to the forest. Curiosity gnawed at me, mixing with fear. What if I could find the cabin? What if the doll was part of something bigger? As if answering my unspoken thoughts, I noticed a small envelope had slipped out from beneath my bed. I picked it up. Inside was a photograph of a group of children, posing around a cabin. My breath caught in my throat. The cabin looked familiar, almost like the one in my memories. They all wore odd, knowing smiles that seemed out of place. Then everything went dark. The power cut out, leaving me in a haze of shadows. I jumped, my phone vibrating into the silence. A message blinked on the screen, "Don't go back." My heart raced as dread washed over me. Who sent that? I knew I had a decision to make. Should I find the cabin, confront what I felt was lingering in the woods, or heed the warning? I couldn't shake the feeling that the secret I sought might be closer than I wanted. I took a deep breath, suddenly aware that something was undeniably pulling me back into the forest's embrace. The next morning, I woke up with a determination that surprised even me. I felt a restless energy buzzing through my veins, urging me to confront the echoes of my past. The photograph still gripped my mind. I needed to know what had happened at that cabin. That I grabbed my bag, tossing in a flashlight, some water, and my old camping gear. As I stepped outside, the sun was shining bright, but the weight of the decision loomed over me like storm clouds. I tried to shake off the unease as I drove toward the forest. The familiar winding road was tranquil, but every turn seemed to whisper warnings. Arriving at the entrance to the woods, I parked and took a deep breath. The air was thick with the smell of pine and damp earth. I hesitated for a moment, feeling the chill of dread creep back in. I couldn't turn back now. I pushed forward, following the path that seemed both inviting and foreboding. After what felt like hours of walking, I spotted a clearing. My heart raced. Off in the distance, I saw it, the old cabin. It stood there, dilapidated and overgrown, as if nature had been trying to reclaim it. I approached cautiously, the urge to turn and run battling with my curiosity. Just as I reached the cabin's door, I noticed something on the ground. It was small and round, a doll's head, half buried in the dirt. The sight made me recoil. I had read about the doll, but seeing it in person sent a chill down my spine. I picked it up, brushing away the grime. Its porcelain surface was cracked, and a fixed smile seemed too wide, too unnatural. Suddenly, a rustling from inside the cabin caught my attention. My heart dropped. Should I call out? Should I run? I hesitated, gripping the doll tightly. The sound intensified, footsteps padding quietly behind the door. I took a step back, my breath quickening. Then, without warning, the door creaked open. A figure stood framed in the doorway. It was a girl, maybe 10 years old, with long dark hair and an unsettling grin that mirrored the doll in my hand. "Did you come to play?" she asked, her voice sweet but laced with an eerie edge. That I stumbled back, nearly dropping the doll. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. The girl tilted her head, her smile growing wider. "The others are waiting." Panic surged through me, and I turned to flee, but the mention of the others glued me to the spot. Those haunting words echoed in my mind as a terrible realization hit me. What if this was the end of my search? Before I could react, she darted back inside the cabin, leaving me alone in the clearing. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but a nagging curiosity bound me in place. Why was she here? Who were the others? That S when I saw it poking out from behind the cabin was a rusted metal box. My heart raced again. What would it reveal? Whatever it was, I couldn't turn my back now. I stepped closer, the fear mixing with an adrenaline-fueled courage. Then I heard laughter, echoing through the trees. It was distant, but it was close enough to send ice through my veins. I crouched low, unsure of what I would find, and reached for the box, my fingers trembling in anticipation. The rusted metal box felt cold against my fingertips as I pulled it from its hiding place. I couldn't believe I was even touching it, but curiosity won over caution for the moment. The box was small, not more than a foot long, covered in a layer of dirt that hinted it hadn't been disturbed in years. I had to know what was inside. With a deep breath, I turned the latch. It creaked open slowly, and I braced myself for whatever was hidden within. Peering inside, I felt my heart drop. The box was filled with old photographs, yellowed with age. I couldn't tell who most of the faces were, their smiles frozen in time. But there were two that made my breath hitch: images of the girl standing at the cabin door. In one picture, she was playing in the woods, the same long dark hair cascading around her shoulders. In the other, she was sitting on the porch of the cabin, staring straight at the camera with the same unnerving grin. I shook off the creeping feeling that wrapped around me like fog. A chill ran up my spine. What was going on here? As I rummaged through the rest of the contents, I found a small, leather-bound journal tucked at the bottom. The pages were fragile and brittle, but as I flipped through, the handwriting caught my eye. It was a girl's handwriting, documenting days spent in the cabin, but there was something darker beneath the surface. Words jumped out at me: "They're always watching, the games are getting dangerous, and we must keep our secret." I felt the laughter again, but it was closer this time, echoing right behind me. The hairs on my neck stood up, and I spun around, heart racing. For a moment, I saw nothing but the trees swaying gently in the breeze. But the laughter continued, swirling like a ghost in the wind, relentless. Forcing myself to focus, I returned my attention to the box, hoping it might provide some clarity. I flipped through more pages, and one entry caught my eye: "Today, we made a promise to the others." My stomach churned. Who were these others? I felt the weight of unseen eyes on me, sensing I was not alone in this place. Then, the door of the cabin creaked open again behind me. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The girl was standing there, watching me. This time, she looked different, her grin faded, and her expression was serious. "They don't like strangers," she said softly. I felt a rush of ice, realizing she was referring to the photographs I had uncovered. I stepped back, clenching the box like a lifeline. "What happened here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head. "You should go. Now." Before I could respond, I heard footsteps approaching, heavy ones. Panic flooded my system, and I dropped the box, its contents scattering across the ground. The girl's expression shifted as she glanced over her shoulder. "They're coming." I turned to run, adrenaline kicking in. Just a few more steps to safety, but the laughter grew louder, transforming into a chaos of voices echoing through the trees. It was no longer playful, it felt threatening. I burst down the path, branches clawing at my arms. Shadows danced around me, and as I risked a glance back, I saw her watching, along with figures emerging from the shadows, faces twisted in smiles that mirrored hers. The air grew thick, the forest seemed to close in, and I pushed myself harder. I needed to escape this madness. Whatever secrets that cabin held would have to wait. As I dashed toward the car, one question burned in my mind: what if there really were others waiting, hidden among the trees? I reached the car, hands trembling as I fumbled with the keys. My mind raced, the images from the photographs replaying in my head. What had I stumbled into? The laughter echoed in my ears, followed by whispers that felt like they were curling around my ankles, trying to pull me back. Finally, the engine sputtered to life, and a surge of relief washed over me. But that relief was short-lived. I threw the car into reverse and sped down the gravel driveway, glancing in the rearview mirror. The girl stood at the cabin door, small and defiant, surrounded by shadowy figures I still couldn't see clearly. My pulse quickened. I felt like I was escaping from something terrifying, but part of me wanted to know more. As I raced along the dirt road, fear turned into a desperate haze. The woods whipped by me, suffocatingly dark under the canopy of trees. I tried to ignore the way the branches seemed to claw at the car as I drove. I needed to put as much distance between me and that cabin as possible. But the nagging feeling in my gut told me it wasn't over. I had barely scratched the surface of whatever secrets lay in wait. Suddenly, the road forked, and I hesitated. My instincts screamed to take a path that led back to town, but a smaller, overgrown trail beckoned on the left. Curiosity seeped back in. What if there were answers to the mystery hiding in the depths of the woods? I took a deep breath and turned the wheel. The gravel under my tires crunched as I drove deeper into the trees. It was quieter here, almost too quiet. The weight of the silence pressed in on me, every minute sound felt amplified. An owl hooted, leaves rustled, a twig snapped. I strained to keep my eyes peeled for anything unusual, but it wasn't he until I spotted something on the ground that my heart sank. That I pulled over and stepped out of the car. There, mingled with the fallen leaves, was a small, ornate doll. Its glassy eyes seemed to glimmer in the dim light. It was dressed in a faded blue dress that reminded me of the girl in the photographs. A chill ran down my spine. Was this another remnant of the past, or was it a warning? My hand hesitated above it, but something pulled me closer. The air shifted, charged with a sudden energy. I glanced around, feeling the hairs on my arms stand up as if a storm was approaching. It was unnerving. Then, from behind a cluster of trees, I caught sight of movement. A figure emerged, a boy, about my age, with wild hair and wide eyes. His clothes were tattered, and dirt smeared his face. "They're not safe," he blurted, panic lacing his voice. "You should leave. We made a deal. You shouldn't have come here." "What deal?" I stammered, feeling confusion mix with fear. He ignored my question, glancing over his shoulder nervously. "They'll find you. You have to go back." Before I could respond, I heard the laughter again, louder this time. The boy's eyes widened in terror, and he turned to run. I could only watch as he vanished into the trees. I was left with the eerie silence that followed him, and the doll still resting at my feet. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting between the trees, heading straight for me. A primal urge kicked in. I needed to find my way back to the car. But questions swirled in my mind. What was happening? Who were these figures haunting the woods? And would I be their next game? I bolted back to the car, heart pounding with every step. The shadows hidden among the trees felt alive, closing in on me with every hurried glance over my shoulder. The laughter echoed again, menacing and full of malice. My breath came in quick gasps as I reached the driver's side, fumbling with the door in my rush to get inside. That I slammed the door shut and threw the keys into the ignition. My fingers shook as I turned them, the engine roaring back to life. I had to get out of there. I shoved the gear into drive and pressed the accelerator, gravel flying beneath my tires. As the car tore down the narrow path, I tried to focus on anything but what I'd just encountered. The girl, the boy, the laughter. It was all too much. I needed perspective. I needed a plan. My thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. When I finally reached the fork again, without hesitation this time, I took the right path, the one that led back toward town. I just wanted to see familiar roads, feel the safety of civilization. But the fear gripping me wasn't fading. The twisted trees around me felt suffocating, closing in as if they wanted to reclaim me. Then a flash of color caught my eye, a twisted form hanging from a branch just off the road, fluttering in the breeze. I slowed down to get a better look. It was a piece of clothing, torn and frayed, swaying against the bark. I couldn't tell if it was from a child or an adult. The sight sent a chilling wave through me. Without thinking, I pulled over and got out, curiosity battling my instinct to flee. I walked cautiously toward the tree, my eyes glued to the fabric. It bore an unmistakable family crest I recognized from the photographs. This couldn't be a coincidence. My heart raced again as I turned it over in my hands, feeling the weight of loss and desperation seep into my bones. Who had worn this? Why was it here? Suddenly, I heard a rustling in the underbrush nearby. My heart dropped, adrenaline surging as I whipped around, expecting to see the shadow again. Instead, it was just a rabbit dashing away. I laughed at myself, but it was short-lived. The humorous thought faded quickly as the laughter from before rolled through the air again, just as menacing as before. That I snapped back to reality, gripping the scrap of fabric. It was a sign or a warning. I couldn't stay here. I bolted back toward my car, the laughter growing louder, teasing me. I was almost within reach of the door when I saw movement at the corner of my eye. A figure emerged. It was the boy again, now standing much closer than before. His eyes were filled with urgent fear. "Leave!" he shouted, each word drumming into my skull. "You don't understand. They'll come for you." My mouth went dry as the laughter morphed into echoing voices, rising and falling like a tide. The boy's frantic energy pulled at my own fear, and I felt frozen in place. Who will come?" I managed to ask, fighting the wave of panic washing over me, but all I got in response was a strangled cry as he turned to run, disappearing back into the shadows. I hesitated for a moment, caught between the need to understand and the urge to flee. That's when I saw at a flicker of movement behind him, two figures emerging from the darkness, their features twisted and inhuman. I froze, terror taking hold. I finally understood, I wasn't just a witness. I was a target. And in that moment, as they seemed to turn their gaze toward me, I realized I might not make it out at all. I turned and sprinted for my car, adrenaline coursing through me like fire. I could hear them now, the low whispering as if the shadows behind me were sharing secrets. I didn't dare look back. Instead, I flung myself into the driver's seat, threw the door shut, and locked it. My hands shook as I fumbled to restart the engine, praying it would come to life quickly. The engine sputtered for a moment, then roared back into existence. I didn't give it a second thought. I slammed the car into reverse and shot backwards, gravel spraying everywhere. I turned the wheel sharply to the left, steering back onto the road. Just keep driving, I thought, and don't look back. I kept my eyes glued to the front windshield, but the laughter echoed in my mind. Disjointed thoughts flashed through my head. Who were those figures? What were they? The boy's warning rang in my ears, they'll come for you. I drove faster, the trees blurring past me. The road seemed endless, the familiar landscape warping into something foreign and menacing. I felt like I was running from an unseen force, but I had no idea where to go. Then I spotted the sign for the town, relief flooding my chest when I recognized the small gas station at the edge of the road. I pulled in sharply, tires screeching to a halt. The flickering neon lights gave me a flicker of comfort. I could regroup here, catch my breath, figure out my next move. That I leapt out of the car and dashed inside the station. The bell above the door jingled, and the small space was bathed in warm light. I filled my lungs with air, trying to steady my racing heart. The clerk, an older man with graying hair, looked up from behind the counter, his brows knitting together at the sight of me. "You okay, miss?" he asked, concern visible in his eyes. I glanced back outside through the window, half expecting to see those figures watching me from the shadows. "No. I need help," I managed, the words tumbling out of my mouth. "There are people. I saw something in the woods." His expression shifted from concern to skepticism. "You sure you weren't just seeing things? This is a quiet town." I could feel a burning frustration rising within me. "No. I'm serious. A boy warned me that they were coming for me." He hesitated, searching my face. Finally, he sighed and nodded towards a dusty old pamphlet rack in the corner. "You might find better answers there than from me. Just, don't stay out after dark." I blinked, confusion settling in. I approached the rack, flipping through the faded brochures. One caught my eye. It was of a local legend about disappearances in the woods, spanning decades. My hands trembled as I read it, and the sense of danger wrapped around me tighter. Suddenly, the power flickered in the building, and the lights went out, plunging everything into darkness. My heart raced again as an icy realization overtook me. Whoever or whatever had been in the woods was now out there, and I was trapped without any sense of safety. As I fumbled for my phone to light my way, I heard a low sound outside, the whispered laughter rising once more, echoing out into the night. The darkness engulfed me as I fumbled with my phone, my fingers slick with sweat. The screen lit up, casting a faint glow that barely pierced the gloom. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm the panic that bubbled up inside me. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, gripping the phone tightly that I could still hear that laughter, almost like it was circling around the gas station, teasing me. What did they want? Did they even know I was here? There was no way I was going to stick around to find out. With the phone held high, I made my way to the door, moving cautiously. I needed to get out of here. I peered outside, my heart pounding at the sight of the empty lot. The shadows grew long and twisted under the dim light of the gas station sign, but I could see no one. Deciding it was now or never, I stepped outside. The cool night air hit me like a slap. I darted toward my car, each step louder than the last, feeling vulnerable all the while. Just as I reached for the door, a flicker caught my eye, a movement at the edge of the woods. My heart dropped as I turned my phone's flashlight in that direction. The beam cut through the darkness, and then I saw them. 3 figures stood just inside the tree line, watching me. They were just silhouettes, but I could feel their eyes piercing through the night. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. "Leave!" I shouted, the fear providing me a sudden surge of courage. But they didn't move. Instead, the voices began again, a soft, faint chorus that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't laughter anymore, there was something sinister about it now. An invitation, maybe? I pulled the car door open, adrenaline pushing me forward. I quickly climbed in, locked it, and slammed my hand against the key ignition. The engine roared to life, and I felt a momentary wave of relief, but that moment was fleeting. The figures were closer now, almost to the road, clad in ragged clothing that blended with the night. Their faces remained obscured, but I could tell they were grinning, revealing teeth that glinted in the pale light that I swung the wheel and jerked out of the lot, the gravel crunching under my tires as I sped away, but my mind raced with questions. Were they part of the legend? Was this the fate of the missing people? I had to figure it out, but how could I when fear threatened to consume me? My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me. I glanced down and saw a notification from the gas station's website. It read, "Beware of the forest shadows. Local reports suggest an increase in strange occurrences." I hit the brakes, my mind spinning. What had I gotten myself into? A sick feeling coiled in my stomach as I processed the message. I couldn't just run, I needed to know more about these shadows before they came for me. Then everything went dark again. The headlights flickered, and suddenly, I found myself surrounded by dense woods with no idea how I'd gotten there. Panic surged. I was lost, trapped again. All at once, I was back in their territory. They were here, waiting for me. That's when I saw it. A figure stepped into the headlights, no longer just shadows, but a boy I recognized from the road earlier. His eyes held a desperate warning. "You shouldn't have come back," he shouted. And just like that, I knew this was only the beginning. My heart raced as I stared at the boy in the headlights. His eyes were wide with fear, not the playful mischief I had seen earlier. "What do you mean?" I shouted back, panic rising in my throat. "What are you talking about?" He took a step closer, the beam from my headlights illuminating his features. His clothes were dirty and torn, and there was a wildness about him. "They're not like us. You don't understand." He glanced nervously behind him, as if he sensed movement in the trees that I wanted to drive off, to put as much distance between me and this madness. But something about his expression made me hesitate. "Who? The shadows?" He nodded, his gaze darting around, clearly agitated. "They want you to join them. If you stay here, it will change you." The words were breathy, like he had just run a marathon. "What does that even mean?" I asked, trying to wrap my mind around what he was saying. "There are stories," he said, glancing over his shoulder again. "People who were taken by the forest. They become part of it. You can't let them in." I felt a chill sweep over me. Were these stories real? My earlier fear began to settle into a deep uneasiness. I have to go, I said, feeling torn between the urge to escape and the need to understand. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You need to listen. You can't help them. If they come for you, don't look back. Just run. And then, just like that, he stepped back into the shadows. He vanished as if the darkness had swallowed him whole. I blinked, bewildered, unsure if I had dreamed up that encounter. In the silence that followed, I realized I still had the car running, the engine humming beneath me. I forced myself to look around, scanning the trees, expecting the figures to materialize at any moment. I saw nothing, just the oppressive blackness, the trees standing guard, waiting, breathing heavily. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, feeling the car jolt forward. The road was ahead, and I just needed to stay on it. But doubt clung to me. What if the boys spoke the truth? What if they wanted something far worse than I could imagine? As I drove, I kept my eyes peeled for any sign of the woods closing in, but all I could see were the flickering shadows of branches in the rearview mirror. The chill returned, creeping up my spine. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down. Another notification. Warning, local residents report sightings of unusual entities. Avoid the forest area. Panic flared once again. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one in this nightmare. There were others who'd seen the same things, who'd felt the same fear. Just then, the radio crackled to life with static, and I could have sworn I heard a faint laugh, a familiar sound that sent shivers down my spine. That I needed answers. I needed to confront this. But when I slowed for a crossroads, I noticed an old wooden sign barely lit by moonlight. It read, "Forest Trail, enter at your own risk." And now I had a choice to make. Go home or uncover the truth behind the shadows. My grip tightened on the steering wheel as I weighed my options. Then I caught a glimpse of movement through the trees just off the trail. There was no mistaking it. Someone was there. But who? And were they coming for me, or were they already part of the darkness? With my pulse racing and uncertainty clouding my thoughts, I made my decision. I had to find out what lurked in those shadows before they found me. The moment I made my choice, a dull ache settled in my chest. I turned onto the trail, gravel crunching under my tires as I entered the realm of shadows once again. Fear and curiosity battled within me, churning my stomach. Dark branches loomed overhead, twisting like skeletal fingers against the pale twilight. I felt the shadows thicken around me as I drove deeper, each inch creating a tension I could almost taste. With every pass of my headlights, I noticed things in the underbrush, faint figures darting just out of reach, whispers that skated through the air like a chill. I tightened my grip on the wheel, steeling myself. They wouldn't take me. I just needed to gather evidence, something tangible that could explain what I'd encountered. That I parked the car at a small clearing where the trees receded slightly, creating a small, semi-open space. Stepping out, I felt the oppressive weight of the forest settle on my shoulders again. I surveyed the area, hoping to spot something that would offer clarity. Mist snaked through the trunks around me, embedding the air with an urgency I couldn't quite articulate. Stay close to the light, I whispered to myself, pulling a flashlight from my bag. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing twisted roots and undergrowth, but no human traces or belongings, nothing except the creeping dread that settled in my gut. Then I spotted it a mere few paces away. Half buried in the leaves was another doll, its glassy eyes reflecting my flashlight's beam. I picked it up, a shiver running down my spine as I recognized similarities to the ones I had seen before. A flicker of movement caught my eye from the corner of the clearing. My heart raced. This time, it wasn't just a blur, it was definitely a figure, a girl standing near the tree line, her eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. My stomach twisted. "Did you come to find us?" she asked, her voice echoing, carrying an eerie sweetness that twisted my insides. "Who are you?" I demanded, forcing my disbelief to the front. The words tumbled out, desperate for answers rather than whims of terror. "You're lost," she said simply, her smile enviably wide, stretching almost too far across her face. "You shouldn't have come here. But the warning was drowned in the laughter. This time, it wasn't just a faint echo, it surrounded me, a chaotic harmony that felt alive. I couldn't tell what was worse, the laughter or the brightening realization of the truth that dawned within me. I wasn't just a visitor, I was part of whatever games they played. "Why is everyone laughing?" I shouted over the cacophony. "What do you want from me?" "Come and play," the girl replied, a tinge of excitement in her voice. "We're all waiting for you in the forest. They want you." The shadows around me flickered with excitement. I turned to run, but as the laughter intensified, I felt something tugging at my mind. It pulled me back against my will. I could hear muffled whispers and laughter, a cacophony beckoning me to join them, to lose myself in their world. My pulse quickened as I stumbled back toward my car, desperately willing my feet to move faster. I could hear their whispers calling, enticing me, but just as I reached my vehicle's door, a sudden clarity emerged through the turmoil. These figures, they were children. Lost souls who had forsaken their lives and now sought to drag others into the fold. I flung myself into my car, fumbling with the keys. I glanced up from the seat, and terror gripped me as I caught sight of the girl standing with her friends at the tree line, their faces gaunt and almost radiant in the dark. Every fragment of my being screamed at me to flee, but doubt trickled in through the cracks of panic. What if I was abandoning those who were trapped? But the moment was fleeting. Just then, the headlights caught another moving figure, darting between the trees. Not children, but something far more grotesque, with distorted features and expressions I couldn't comprehend. My heart raced, urging me to act. I turned the ignition. The engine roared to life, shaking the remnants of hesitation. As I floored the pedal, I felt the laughter consuming me, echoing in my head. Trees blurred past like fingers trying to seize me as I sped down the trail. My foot pressed harder against the gas, urgency flooding my movements, but the laughter didn't diminish, it grew, intensifying into an insistent echo that reminded me, they were always present. I burst out onto the main road, tires screeching, and barely skimmed the turn into the brightness of town. I glanced in the rearview mirror, breath hitching as I spied the figures behind the trees, still watching silhouettes of despair that would continue, waiting for the next curious spirit to wander too close. I had crossed the line into the inexplicable, revealing secrets that would forever haunt me. Questions of what lay within those woods and the otherworldly beings that resided there remained unresolved and unrelenting. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if the girl is still out there, waiting with the others, playing at the edge of the shadows. But mostly, I try not to think about it.